Can you hear us now? And I'll talk louder. Okay, great. Thank you, Cheryl. All right. Well, on that note, yeah, we were just waiting for everyone to join, but we will go ahead and get started. So we are so lucky to have Motivosity's founder with us, Scott Johnson. I have seen and heard this webinar, and it is fantastic. So I'm excited for you all. Scott is recognized as a technology leader and entrepreneur who has spent his career focused on making people's time at work count for something more. As founder and chairman of Workfront, Scott has helped knowledge workers around the world be more productive. And now, as founder of Motivosity, Scott is helping people be happier about being at work. Scott is passionate about leveraging technology in social ways to ultimately help people be more effective and get more value out of life. When he's not stuck behind a computer screen, you can find Scott trying to live up to his personal motto of stay young. And I can vouch for that one, because I feel like he always comes in and is like, oh, I did this crazy hike, or I did this cool new trick behind the boat. And we're all kind of trying to play catch up, keeping up to his value of stay young. So with that, we are so grateful all of you are here. We're so excited to hear from Scott. And Scott, I will let you take it away.
Thank you very much, Carly. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today and taking some of your time to have this conversation with us. I am going to share my screen here and want to jump right in. But before we jump into the content, I noticed that one of the promos for this webinar on LinkedIn referred to me as destroyer of fancy boats. And I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks a lot, Steve. And, you know, some days are really good days, and then the very next day can be not such a very good day. And so this happened to me this summer. It wasn't malicious. In fact, nobody knows exactly what happened, but this is why I earned the moniker of destroyer of fancy boats. What I really want to talk about today, though, is values and some things that are key to the culture equation in our businesses. And I want to start with a poll here. So what is the state of your company values? You haven't defined them yet. You're working on them right now. You have them, but it seems like they need some love, or they are great. All right, good. So here are the results from this group, and this tracks pretty close to what the general population is out there. You know, we've done this poll with HR leaders as well, and in this group, 22% of the group said the values are great. 61%, that's the majority here, have them, but it seems like they need some love. We're going to talk about that today. Got one more question for you. Let's see here. Let's do poll number 2. If I asked a random employee in your company what the values are, they would have no idea what to say. They would probably know less than half of them. They would probably know more than half of them. They would know them all by heart. Okay. Very good. So the majority in this group is they would know less than half of them, and followed by they would probably know more than half of them. Nobody felt like they would know them all by heart. So in this group, we've got some work ahead of us here, and we're going to talk about why this even matters today. And then we'll talk about what we can do about it. So there's a problem right now that's widely recognized. We've seen it. It's that employees are more disconnected now than they've ever been before. And man, at this point in time, it seems like 2019 was the golden years when the economy was growing and everybody wasn't traumatized by COVID and the stock market was up and we were all struggling with other things. But now it's a significant problem. In fact, it's significant enough that the US Surgeon General has identified this disconnection and isolation in the workplace and in our lives as a big enough problem to occupy like 2 of the top 3 priorities. So this is a big deal. So I have a brilliant idea. Let's just connect people. And this is sort of like the coach saying, just score more points and you'll win the game. It's funny though, because as people try to grapple with their disconnected teams, there's a concept that's not even coming up. And that concept has to do with our culture, our values, and our mission. So some of you have used Motivosity, and we sure appreciate that. We love our partnership with our customers. And one of the things that we see over and over and over, in fact, if you go read any of the reviews about Motivosity online, you're going to read something like this. It's going to say, Motivosity has done more to connect and unify our team than any other initiative we've done. And this is a huge concept. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why this works. We're going to start with an example here. Suppose you are a passenger on an airplane. If you're like most people today, you can't wait to put your headphones on. You're just hoping the person next to you doesn't want to talk. A lot of passengers really just feel like an individual in a group of strangers. You might identify with somebody if they get on the plane and they're wearing your favorite sports team's hat. I know periodically I travel and I wear my Thanks Matters shirt, and people come up all the time and say, oh, I love Thanks Matters. That's awesome. Or when I wear my BYU hat, other fellow BYU alums will say something. But now, and suppose instead that you're on a flight with random strangers, but that the flight got canceled, including not just yours, but 1,000 other flights got canceled as well. Now you're in an airport and you're standing next to somebody, and that person probably isn't just a random passenger anymore. They're a fellow victim of winter weather. All of a sudden, they're not so random, they're a friendly. This actually happened in December of 2022. There was a mass cancellation event that happened. And when that happened, it was in one day, Southwest canceled 1,000 flights, and a spontaneous community developed in the shared struggle of the passengers. One passenger said, I did see a lot of good in people. The way passengers were coming together, helping each other out, sharing information. There was some sort of redeeming humanity in the unrest of the Southwest meltdown. In other words, with nothing to identify ourselves by, we're all just random strangers. Once we have something in common that we identify ourselves with, it becomes easier to create a unified group from those who also share that identity. There's a name for this situation. It's called social identity theory. And this theory was developed in the 70s by Henry Tajfel. And part of the equation is in social identity theory is the psychology behind group formation. It describes the effect that this has on behavior. It actually has a big impact on behavior. It describes the condition under which group identity becomes more important than the individual identity. Individuals who want to maintain a positive identity with the group that they identify with change their behavior accordingly and to maintain that favorable social standing. So what social identity theory does is it looks at the reason why we're so loyal to groups that we belong to and why identification with one group inevitably causes conflict with others. So we like the loyalty with our in-groups, and that's the group we identify as. They're called in-groups, and then all the other groups are called out-groups. If you look at conflicts and events that have shaped human history, you'll see a pattern. You'll see that innovation and prosperity has happened from the power of uniting people and working toward a common goal. You'll also see fighting over land in the name of religion that has created countries, borders, boundaries. You'll see fighting over land and populations based on different racial or ethnic or ideologies. And these still dominate the headlines today. In fact, in 2023, rescue.org published the top 10 world threats. They were all a result of this. And at that time, Israel wasn't even in that list. And now that's a major source of contention in the world around us. It sounds like there's a lot of conflict involved in connecting people. Can't we just do the positive, the good, the connecting part without the conflict? Unfortunately, not really. It seems we're wired to identify with groups, and group identity becomes even stronger in the face of conflict. What we can do, though, is create the lines in such a way that it promotes unity within our companies and directs our competitive energies or our conflict energies outward in competitive and constructive ways. So just to summarize what we've covered so far, creating an in-group in your company is a good thing. And hopefully that in-group consists of everyone in the company. Knowing that there will be conflict with any out-group, we can use this to create unity within our own teams and keep competitive energy directed outside the company. By the way, there's a little warning here for HR leaders. We have a tendency to create groups inside of companies. Remember that anytime you create an in-group, it also comes with out-group conflict. It's just a fact of life. You want unity over conflict. So the group identities should not be more prominent than the overall identity of the company. Social identity describes the conditions under which group identity becomes more important than the individual identity. So when you talk about culture and what it really means, there are experts talking about culture. I just did a quick search for ways to improve culture. And one of the first links that came up in Google was a recent article. And these were the takeaways from that article. Take to social media to develop work culture through fun celebrations, accomplishments, announcements, host happy hours, add a foosball or ping pong table to the break room. Consider a catered lunch to reward employees and incentivize them to produce their best work. Fun culture ideas like catered lunches, break room activities, happy hours, and social media spotlights are excellent for team building and prove to have a positive impact on the employee experience. I'm sure that some of these things are things that are currently in the list of things to do or things that have been done in our companies. And while they're not bad, these have nothing to do with culture. They might have something to do with marketing culture. Yes, you can apply for a Best Place to Work award, and you can say that one of the things that's awesome about what you do is that you have happy hours every Friday and pay for lunch. That's marketing culture, but really, truly impactful culture doesn't come from this stuff. The strength of the in-group, the culture, is the product of the mission and the values. So I'm going to pick on Home Depot here because I was at Home Depot recently and they're a huge company and they have unlimited resources. They should know how to do this. So this is and I wish we could have a dialogue here because it's way more fun than monologuing on a webinar. But here's their mission: to provide the highest level of service, the broadest selection of products, and the most competitive prices. Does that inspire you? Like, would you quit your job to go work for Home Depot because of this mission? Does it make you feel warm and fuzzy inside? Like, do you really feel like they're on a mission to do good in the world here by saying this? I don't think so. At least for me, this falls flat. I took a stab at rewriting this, and I would say their mission is more like to help ordinary people live in greater comfort and security by improving their surroundings. What does a clear mission do for a company? It's not just a generic business description. What Home Depot really wants to do is hire people that are passionate about helping people improve their surroundings, right? Isn't that what they do? So shouldn't that impact every aspect of their business, from who they hire to the kinds of products that they sell to the kinds of education classes that they put on Saturdays or whatever else it is they do to try and fulfill their mission? The one on the right here is inspirational. The one on the left is just a description. How is your company mission? Is it inspiring? Would people quit their job to come and work under the banner of your mission? If not, this is up to you to take control of and fix. Really, I think that CEOs own the mission. Oftentimes, CEOs end up outsourcing the mission to a committee or to a team within HR, and it's super important to get this right. So this is kind of the building block of culture. I'm not a Marine. I haven't served in the armed forces. I definitely respect those who have. And if you have, and you're on this call, greet us in the chat so that we can thank you for your service. This isn't a recruitment webinar either, but I do love history. And I think extreme environments bring out the best in human nature. And I love to understand that. What kind of unity is needed to put your life in someone else's hands? Read this mission statement and think about whether it inspires a certain kind of person, and if that kind of person is who you would want to deliver on that mission. To fight through anything with everything, with honor, with each other, and without fail. This mission will be inspiring to a certain kind of person and a complete turnoff to another kind of person. This is a good thing. Your mission should be your first line of defense in attracting or weeding out talent. I think this mission is attracting exactly who they want it to. How about these values? Honor, courage, and commitment. I love how clear and concise they are. How does honor, courage, and commitment play out in real life? There's an entire series on National Geographic called No Man Left Behind. In example after example, they risk their lives in ways that just make no logical sense in order to take care of fellow soldiers in distress. In fact, there's a little clip here I wanted to play that shares this.
You know, Iwo Jima isn't just something that happened in a history book. Normandy was not just a big event. There were people, and these were stories, and every bomber that ever flew over Europe had guys in it, and they all had a story, and they had a life, and why did they do what they did? And then at the end, when it comes down to it, they did what they did for each other. And again, I think it's a shame that out here in the real world, it takes something like somebody dying and us making it out of something where others didn't, for us to realize that that's what it's about. That's why we're on this planet, is to take care of each other. You're not put here to take care of yourself. That was not the point. You've been given all kinds of gifts and tools and weapons and skill sets, and what are those for? They're not for you to go, there's nothing wrong with having a big bank account, but that's not why you have those. Your gifts are given to you only to the extent of how you help others, and I really think that you learn that in an environment where it's as close to tight-knit as, you know, the Rangers or the SAS or the Marine Corps or the Delta teams and SEAL teams. I think you learn that when you know how much you have to count on each other, and you want it back. I think it's like none of us miss the job, but we all miss each other.
Okay, I hope you could hear that. That seemed a little soft to me. Maybe I will change my volume for the next one. But what did we just hear? We heard that what they did for each other. It wasn't the job, it was each other. The group was that strong. And that's what culture is. Mission is the inspiration and the direction. Your mission is your why. It should be compelling. The values are the attributes that inspire the kinds of action that typify the group. So, how does your mission stack up in your company? Do you know it by heart? Does it inspire a certain kind of person to quit their job to come be with you? You have an advantage over other companies if your mission is clear and compelling, and you have a disadvantage if you don't. People joined your company because of that mission or because it just gives them a job. Really, you don't want a team full of just a job folks. The people at your company should be people who love the mission, who are passionate about what you're doing. Even before they join the company, they should be able to demonstrate how they embody your mission in their lives. If your mission is really the mission, it should influence every decision you make in the company. You shouldn't have to get bogged down in too much competing agendas if everybody understands the mission. For example, at Motivosity, our mission is to help people be happier about being at work. Demonstrating ways that you've worked to improve people's work experience factors into our hiring decisions. All of the decisions we make about our product first go through this filter as well. The perspective we take when building software keeps the mission front and center. Will it help somebody be happier about being at work? If we build something that makes a program administrator happy, but creates friction or unhappiness in the lives of the people, we failed as a company. Let's talk about values for a second, because we have some work to do on our values. 22% of this group thought the values were great. 0% thought that the average employee would know all of the values by heart. If your values don't cost you something as a company, then they're not really values. If you're not willing to pay for them, they're not valuable by definition. CEOs oftentimes just defer to a committee to create the company values. And they get lists that contain concepts like care about the customer, integrity, candor, etc. These aren't bad behaviors per se, but they're just table stakes. They're not values, really. They're just what we expect. We expect every functional professional to do these things. They aren't unique. They don't cost the company anything, and employees don't self-identify to those values. Social identity happens when company values that define a unique set of characteristics that people identify with. Let's use an example here. Let's suppose that one of your values is innovation as a company. How do you make that an actual value that really counts and isn't just lip service or a bullet on a list somewhere that says these are our values? First of all, you would hire people that could demonstrate their entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial in their lives. You wouldn't hire somebody who's qualified to do the job just because they're qualified. They would have to have this additional aspect to their lives. As a company, you might require teams to allocate a certain percentage of their time inventing new products, processes, or methods. You might oversample on celebrating progress that's made through innovation. You would want to publicly recognize acts every single day that represent innovation or wins resulting from innovative efforts. So this is how to make a value count for something. Now you're probably thinking, it would be impossible to have 18 of these. And you're right, you can't have 18 values that matter. In fact, people can't even remember that. And to the extent that people can't understand the values, how can they identify with them? How can you have a strong culture if people can't identify with the values? I personally think your budget for values is 3 or 4 tops. Remember, with values, you're not trying to identify admirable traits. You're trying to create the definition of the in-group. The more the definition of the in-group applies to the entire team, the more unity will exist in the company. So in this group, we didn't think any of our employees 100% know the value, but we thought that I think it was 30% know less than half of the values. Let's do some work on that and figure out how to get our employees not just to know the values, but to know how to live by them, and figure out how we're going to manage and hire to our values. There's the saying that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. And if you didn't do that, then today is the best time to plant a tree. And the same goes for your culture. The best time to establish culture is at the very beginning. And the second best time is right now. The longer you wait, the more painful it will be to have the culture that you really want to have. So it's never too late to change. I've been through this, by the way. I started a company called Workfront without defining the culture first. And it grew from one person working in the basement. So we were really unified back in those days, to 1,500 people when Adobe bought it in 2020. And as we grew beyond 150 employees, we started hiring experts from all over the country and bringing them in to help build the company. These were been there, done that people from Salesforce and IBM and so forth. And we had stars in our eyes. And there were huge struggles that happened as a result of different pockets of culture popping up in the company. We had one department that had an anti-company subculture because their leader was self-aggrandizing. We had another department that didn't love the company because their leader didn't treat his subordinates respectfully. Cleanup was a mess. Your culture isn't real until you fire somebody for not being a cultural fit, even though they get good results. At my companies, that has been by far the number one reason, above and beyond skills and abilities, is whether or not they're a cultural fit with the mission and values of the company. Bottom line, culture matters because it lays a foundation for us to have a common group to identify with. So as we think about how do we change, it takes an initiative, take charge to define it, and then you can't over communicate it. You need to figure out how you're hiring to mission and values. You need to be prepared to lose some talent because of this. When you change the culture, some people aren't going to identify with it anymore, and that's fine. You'll replace them with stronger talent that is more enthusiastic about the company than you've experienced before. When you get this right, it's long-lasting and impactful. As I was trying to think of examples, like what better example than a mission that was defined 250 years ago and caused people literally to leave their homes and leave their homeland to come and experience this mission, to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. This was a crazy idea 250 years ago, but such a compelling concept. It brought people from all over the world. To support that, these were the values. Liberty. Americans have unalienable rights. Self-government. Political power comes from the people. Limited government. There's a protection of rights and the purpose and limit to government. All people would be treated equal under the law, and that individuals would be in control of their own lives. This was also very unique at the time. Alexis de Tocqueville observed that Americans' belief, this is what he wrote of Americans' belief in self-reliance. They owe nothing to any man. They expect nothing from any man. They acquire the habit of always considering themselves as standing alone. They're apt to imagine that their whole destiny is in their own hands. So remember the in-group and out-group conflicts? What happens when values collide? What happens when you have a group of people who believe in limited government and rugged individualism, and a group of people who believe in big government and collectivism. The outcome is not good. And we're seeing conflict and tensions and problems arise. And really all those problems aren't between good and bad people. They're between people who prioritize values differently. Different values are at the top of the list for different groups that are in conflict. So companies can't afford to have that conflict. It creates friction, it creates inefficiency, it demoralizes people. When there are pockets of different value in the company, people begin to work against each other and competing in groups versus out groups. They have tribalism. It's in our DNA, it's inevitable. This is where companies need to be very careful in today's landscape. There's a lot of pressure to create groups inside of companies. If these become the central focus instead of the overall company mission and the overall company values, problems happen. This is why we have companies that are recognized as having strong culture, and companies that are recognized as having strong culture have some significant benefits. For example, here are some that were identified by Gallup. Companies that are noted as having a strong culture have a 50-point increase in employee engagement over a 3-year period. They have 85% net profit increase over a 5-year period. They have 138% improvement over customer satisfaction within a 5-year period. They have 54 employees say it was a strong sense of community that kept them at the company. These are all very, very important benefits. In a Gallup study that was done earlier this year, only 2 in 10 employees felt connected to their company culture. In other words, this is saying 80% of employees feel disconnected. The problem with disconnection is it leads to decreased productivity, increased turnover, and ultimately cost businesses, according to a report run this year by Datacom, $406 billion, or about $1,200 per person in the United States per year. That is a big issue. This is a problem worth solving. As we kind of conclude the discussion about mission and values, I thought I'd bring up this metaphor from a book that I read called Boys in the Boat, which is a very good book, by the way. These young men who were rowers in the Pacific Northwest, they weren't the sons of lawyers and bankers. They weren't Ivy League kids. They didn't have the resources. Everyone really believed that they didn't have any business competing with the Stanfords and the Yales and the Harvards of the world. Everybody believed they had no business representing our country in the Olympics. But they did have one key advantage, and that was their unity. And as described by the author, he said, in rowing, there's a thing that sometimes happens that is hard to achieve and hard to define. It's called swing. It happens only when all are rowing in such perfect unison that not a single action is out of sync. Rowers must rein in their fierce independence and at the same time hold true to their individual capabilities. We have a little video clip here that this is from this group of boys who went to the Olympics and competed in Germany.
It's a very interesting sight to be here and describe this to you. The Washington crew is probably the slowest.
Actually, let me pause this here
really
really quick. I want to see if I can turn up my volume. And it is all the way up. I hope you can hear it then. We'll try again.
It's
okay.
A very interesting sight to be here and describe this to you. The Washington crew is probably the slowest starting crew in the world. It gives everybody heart failure.
The crowd is already chanting Deutschland, Deutschland, Deutschland. They don't actually hear the call of the start of the race.
The Washington crew had a horrible start. Horrible. They were thrashing.
I can see that Italy is leading, Germany is second, Switzerland third.
They were a quarter way through the race, and they were behind the field. They were facing the wind and the chop.
Suddenly, Don Hume seemed to go into a trance.
American crew appears to be fairly well in the rear.
Don Hume hasn't been responding to Bobby Mock's calls to him to pick up the rate.
Bobby Mock knew that if something didn't change, everything was lost.
The United States dragging along, not in the first three.
Suddenly, Don Hume pops his head up and starts rowing beautifully, and the boat explodes forward.
The United States is beginning to pick up quite rapidly now that good old Washington rushed.
Within 1,000 meters, they started to move back on the field.
Washington crew is driving hard on the outside of the course.
There were people screaming down on them. It must have been absolutely deafening.
Nobody could hear him. Even Don Hume couldn't hear him 15 inches in front of him with a megaphone. He did the only thing he could, which was start whacking on the side of the shell.
He could go.
There is not one length difference between the first 5 crews.
They had to fight and claw and drag that
The
boat.
United States is in front with 50 meters to go.
It was a total gut check.
40 meters to go. They have half a boat length on Italy. 20 meters to go. 10 meters to go. And the United States wins with Italy second and Germany third. Great Britain fourth and Hungary fifth.
I love that. So we talked about mission, we talked about values. Let's talk briefly about the environment that we're creating in our companies. Some of you know this. We affectionately refer to this as your happy place at work. This is Motivosity. It's a daily reminder of what we signed up for. It's a daily dose of positivity, which helps us all remember that we're our own in-group. There's something more than this, though, that we've invested in heavily as a company. So this here is a recognition, and you can see that one of the things that we have done from the very beginning is tie it to company values. You think your team doesn't know the values of the company? If they look at this every single day and they see these values and they can hover over it and see a description of what it really means, this reinforces every single day in multiple ways as people look at a public feed of appreciations and highlights that are going on, and those are linked to company values, and you see those values over and over and over again, and the value and the behaviors that exemplify those values. It really helps people be on the same team, in the same group. We talked briefly at the beginning about the comment that we get. Motivosity has done more to connect and unify our team than any other initiative we've done. And we're investing more into this. We are investing into what is called a social intranet, the place where your team has community, connection, and communication. Some of you have used Motivosity and have experienced the community and the connection part of this. Now, what's coming up ahead for us is just another iteration on the understanding that values and being able to have the connection to groups is important for people. And you'll see this coming up in the form of spaces where you can share directed company news, host events, offer resources, communications, groups and teams, and these can be created top-down, they can be created within departments, or they can be created just as ad hoc groups within the company. And so what our platform looks like here in the very near future is that social intranet is the foundation of being connected. And when you have a group of people that are connected, then when you layer onto it things like recognition and rewards, performance management, and employee engagement, they are all more effective and more impactful because you can draw on the strength of the connection that's happening within your teams. So to sum up what we talked about today, identifying with a group, an in-group, can bring about a powerful and lasting identification with that group. That's called social identity. In groups come with conflict directed at out groups. It's inevitable. Effective values help us create a company-wide in-group that's strong enough to deliver group identity benefits. And when things go right, there are clear and compelling benefits for this. And when you create an environment that promotes these concepts, it's strengthened even more. In fact, an environment that promotes these is necessary for the success of this. So that is the content for today. And I guess we will open it up for some Q&A.
Hi, yes, Scott, thank you so much for that amazing presentation. I think it was even better the second time I heard it. We do have some questions that have come in, but I just want to give a second in case anyone else has had one pop up. Feel free to put it in the Q&A. But the first question, Scott, is for you, obviously. And it says, okay, you've been a CEO and founder before, and so now you know the importance of values within the company. But what do you suggest for getting executives who don't have the same stance on board for unifying values? That executive vibe?
Yes, that's the age-old question. How do you get executives who probably know this from book learning? They're book smart, but they're not street smart when it comes to values. You can start, but you can cite research. You can do all of that, and maybe you can convince them. Chances are they probably read that research already, and they're a little bit delusional. So one thing that you can do is create the environment. The environment really is a ground up effort in companies. Like when we go in and sell Motivosity to customers, sometimes executives aren't on board with that either. And what happens is over time, they start to, we drag them to the party, and they start to see the benefits, and they start to realize, oh, that's what this is all about. It's almost like they have to experience it to know it, which is really tough. If you have to get their approval to do something. So I would say, like, go to these executives, say, just trust me. We'll check back in a year, I'll bet you dinner, whatever it is. But it's going to have to almost be kind of a just trust me. You're going to have to see this in action.
What I'll put in a plug too, I mean, two things I thought is you shared a lot of great statistics about the benefits of this as well, right? And sometimes those numbers talk loudly, as well as part of Motivosity. If you bring on our employee insights tool, you get to measure the impact of Motivosity as well as some of our reports. So we kind of put our money where our mouth is, and that can help you do the same.
Definitely.
Okay, another question. Okay, they said, I love the idea of people feeling a sense of belonging in the workplace, but how do you combat the idea that people are just there for a job? They don't need it to be their whole life. I get that question a lot because I think it's almost like a trend right now in the younger generation. Yeah. It's like, don't do the extra thing, don't go the extra mile, like you don't owe the company anything. So
yeah, dagger to the heart, because my work is my life. No, this is important. And look, it starts with the idea that the majority of your waking hours are spent at work. And people have this feeling that what I do all day, every day is just this necessary evil so that I can have a life. It's just a job so that I can live my life. That's selling yourself short. Really, it's a short-sighted view, and it comes from not having anything inspiring at work, really. And when people are inspired, that goes away. One of our values here at Motivosity is love what you do. And I believe that when people love the work that they do, and it doesn't matter which job it is, like if you're a software developer and you love the work that you do, you're proud of that line of code. You're proud of the equation and the algorithm you just created, and that it's beautiful and it's efficient. And even if nobody looks under the hood and sees your work, you're still proud of it. And people who love what they do, work feels like what you would want to be doing if you didn't have a job. And that goes right back to what is the mission that that this company has, and are you hiring people that care about that mission in their lives even before they work in your company? There are plenty of companies that just hire qualified people who don't even care about the company, and those are the ones who feel like, why would I go the extra mile for this company? It's not doing anything for me. Well, that might be true, but it's also kind of sad that they don't feel a sense of personal joy in helping out with that mission.
Yeah, I love and agree with everything you said. It's almost like some of those people don't know what they don't know. Like they don't know that jobs out there in cultures can exist that make you love what you do. So
right.
Yes, love that statement.
Here's an example. I hired a software developer several years ago. It was one of our guys in Hungary, and I went over to visit him. And when I went to his house and hung out with him and his family, and he's a software developer. He's writing great code for us at Motivosity. What's he doing in his free time? He's programming a robot lawnmower that uses GPS to mow his lawn. Like, that's somebody who loves what they do, and if they're not writing code at work, they're writing code at home because it makes them happy. And then to be able to do it for a company that's doing good in the world and helping people have a better life experience is icing on the cake. So that's, I think that's like a good example of what you can have with employees.
Yes, 100%. Okay, well, thank you so much, Scott, for all of your thoughts and the presentation you put together. For everyone who has attended or registered, we will be sending out a follow-up email with a link to this recording, so you can share it, watch it again, write down all your tips and tricks, and that should be coming early next week. And in the spirit of November and next week, here at Motivosity, we are a company with a mission to make people happier at work, and we are big on being a gratitude-centric company as well. So go thank someone today. Remember to be grateful. And everyone, have a great Thursday and a great rest of November.
Thanks.